Our next session focuses on what is, bar none, probably the hottest buzzword in the customer management space, if not in the entire business world. And that's the notion of artificial intelligence as well as sort of predictive capabilities. When you think of how organizations are trying to optimize their operations, try to enhance their customer experience, those conversations, those ideas, those brainstorming sessions are simply not happening absent a conversation about the impact of AI. It could be AI as a tool, a way to make these things happen. It could also be just quite simply how artificial intelligence is changing the landscape. Either way, it's obviously a pivotal part of the conversation, and we want to explore that today. Now, our goal for today's conversation is to be intelligent about artificial intelligence. We all know it can markedly improve the way businesses deliver experiences, but the important word is that it can. It has the potential to. It's possibly going to offer transformation. There is no guarantee that's going to happen. The idea, the real efficacy of artificial intelligence, the real value, the real impact is going to come when you start to think about how to use the technology to achieve certain purposes. Whether you're trying to improve the customer experience, whether you're trying to optimize and automate workflow, whether you're simply trying to make the connection between agents and customers more personalized and more interesting, each of those are things that artificial intelligence can tackle if you set the right objectives in mind, if you know what you're trying to achieve, and if you plan and roll out the technology accordingly. And that's what we're focusing on today, this intentional journey of artificial intelligence, this practical use of the technology to achieve real goals. Helping us get there will be someone who's also speaking about the topic at the CCW Fall Conference in Austin, and that is David. David, how's everything going?
Going great, thank you.
Great. And yeah, I mean, obviously, when we saw that you were kind of not only just talking about AI and kind of a cliche, oh, it's a cool technology, you got to know about it sense, but really your CCW Austin topic really focuses specifically on the journey, which I think, from my understanding, really means that you're going to be exploring, I think, the implementation process, setting the goals, and making sure that it really lives up to a vision that you have for your organization. Because I think the general consensus, the theme so far in CCW Fall, and a theme I imagine to continue over the next sessions, is that no matter what you do, the specific initiatives you undertake, the specific policies that you implement, they all should be tied to a core vision of what your business is trying to achieve with the customer experience.
That's true. That's exactly what we have gone through over the last couple of years here.
Great. So moving on to our discussion for today, I'm curious about the idea of the predictive experience. Specifically, I want to know what the point of it is. I think, there's a lot of great ideas in the business world. There's a lot of great buzzwords and phrases, but this is business. We need value. We need proof of motivation. And so from your perspective, are customers actually expecting the experience to sort of be predictive and tailored to who they are and their behavior?
Well, I don't know if customers are really demanding predictive analytics, but I think what they're demanding is low effort and a great customer experience. And that's what predictive analytics provides, or really is the foundation to allow that great experience and low effort. It can drive a sense of personalized service, quicker service, and allows us to come across as knowledgeable of their needs. It also allows us to reach out to the customer before they call or try and contact us based upon what we see happening with our business.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost like I knew what I was talking about in the introduction when I said that you have to kind of set the goal in mind. And I think that's it. I think you hit the nail on the head there, in that customers don't necessarily care about the specific kind of operational tactics and technologies you're using. They care about the impact on them, what the experience looks like for them. And it sounds like that if you roll out predictive analytics correctly, you can really enhance the experience that the customer is facing, and that's going to, I think, lead to those satisfaction and loyalty benefits that we're all striving for.
That's right.
Now, is it just about customer delight, or when you look at using predictive analytics within your organization, are there also operational benefits, those who strictly care about the hard dollars and cents?
Without a doubt, it's good for the business also. Lower effort equates to higher containment and self-service channels, which lowers your operating cost. And also, when not contained in self-service channel, and it does go to an agent, the agent already has a lot of needed information, which reduces the HT which therefore reduces the cost. So it's good for the customer and it's good for business.
Now, obviously, a predictive experience is not, not necessarily a common term, but what I'm getting at with this next question, wondering what it entails, is when I think about how predictive analytics can specifically empower a better experience, what are some ways that, it can really elevate that? And, obviously you talked about the impact, you talked about reducing effort and making things faster and more efficient and perhaps more personalized and more tailored to the customer's issue. But what is it going to look like in the real world? When you're delivering this experience and you're leveraging some, this stronger intelligence, this more predictive mindset for the customer experience, what does that look like for what the business is actually offering its customers when they engage?
Yeah, I think a good predictive experience kind of follows what we call the customer interaction life cycle. First, a good predictive experience is going to provide proactive digital communications before a customer calls. It can prevent them from having to do anything. Second, if they do call, there's improved self-service capabilities. As I mentioned earlier, lower effort and a greater experience. If they do need to speak to an agent, the third part is it can help get the call to the right agent with the right skill. So it's intelligent routing. Next, if an agent when it gets to the agent, they're already provided information on the customer and why they're calling. Therefore, that call goes faster and with less customer effort. I don't know about you, but when I do wind up speaking to an agent, I like for it to move promptly and for them to already know a lot about what I'm calling about, what my patterns are. Next, predictive analytics also will provide agent information for consultation and what the next best offer might be. And finally, a good predictive analytic or predictive experience assists with any follow-up activities, can provide, a follow-up notifications or check to see if things were done properly, even follow through with some surveys. So again, I think that's the kind of the scope or the realm of the predictive experience across the entire customer interaction lifecycle.
Now, those all sound great. You mentioned that you like when that happens as a customer. I feel the same way when when I start to know the business is thinking about what's best for me, not only at the given time but moving forward. I'm a happier customer, and obviously that's, of course, a great sentiment for a business to drive as well. But what does it take to really do that? Because, it's not just like, oh, I'm buying a predictive analytics solution and suddenly everything is going to work. I'd imagine there's a combination of data management as well as processes that you need to put in place to make sure that whether you have the technology or not, you're actually able to make good on this commitment to a more predictive and analytics-driven experience.
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. First, you have to understand what attributes of the customer. You have to understand what attributes of the customer and their data are most relevant, so you can then have a central repository of data that needs to be and can be analyzed. This data really should be centralized or have fast access to it. And second, you have to utilize high-speed analytics. The customer doesn't want to wait on prediction. They don't want to sit there and wait 30 seconds or a minute on that aspect. The underlying technology has to be a high-speed platform.
So, makes sense. I think we have the context behind it, but now starting to perfect the idea of it. So one of the areas is omni-channel. Now, I'd imagine there's pros and cons, and I'm wondering how you feel. So obviously, with more touch points, there's more opportunities for data. And with more data, you have a better ability to kind of understand what's going on in your experience and predict accordingly. By the same token, that I'd imagine that could complicate the process of, making sure that you track the customer throughout the journey and make sure that each step of the journey is optimized. So, what do you see as the real impact of omnichannel when it comes to predicting a better experience for customers?
Yeah, omnichannel has been a big buzzword over the last few years, but I think when you talk about omni-channel engagement or that experience, you have to think about consistencies. All channels have to access the same data and provide the same experience. All channels have to be consistent in offers and information. Also need to understand the channel of preference for each customer so you can speak to them the way they want. Such as if a customer, every time they have a transaction, they sign up for any e-transactions, then we need to email them. Don't call them or send them a letter. This drives that engagement. This drives that experience they're looking for. However, again, with the consistency, you have to ensure that if they do wind up talking to an agent, that agent has the visibility of what's been translated to the customer, what's been communicated, or what's been offered, so that customer, all the information that they ever receive is consistent. And I think that's the key to the omni-channel engagement, is consistency.
Now, obviously one of the other buzzwords within this kind of discussion is the idea of customer intent, that what a customer says may not really be what they mean, or the actions they take might not really be what they're trying to achieve. And so, what does it take to start to understand and shift your thinking to the actual intent of the customer, what they really want, what they're really trying to achieve, as opposed to say, just, what they're doing at a given time?
Yeah. I think the whole key to customer intent is tuning, tuning of your analytics. You need to make assessments. You have to determine how successful your determination of intent is. Are you getting too many no's? You have to analyze the success of your wording. So you have to have consistent and continued tuning of your predictive analytics to be successful with that. So to me, I think the whole key to customer intent is that tuning aspect.
Now, what do you do with that, though? Because that sounded really awesome. You have a sense of what your customer really wants. You have a sense of their intent, but is that, what are the practical benefits of that? Like we talked about earlier, this is business. You have to have some value behind the decisions you make and the initiatives you undertake. It's probably not going to be enough for a lot of our listeners, a lot of their organizations, just to kind of think of this as, it's a nice thing to have. What are sort of the practical ramifications of understanding customer intent?
Well, I think when you understand the customer intent, you alter the dialogue, you alter the understandings that goes into your analytics. You can add new attributes to analysis. You keep a regular cadence for implementing change or new intelligence. You may need to make seasonal adjustments. So you're always continually reinventing and keeping current. That helps, again, with your ability to provide that greater customer experience, to do self-service, to have that containment, or to make the calls shorter. So again, you get a better experience for the customer, and it's helping out from the business aspect. But again, kind of goes back to really having a good cadence and doing a great analysis of what's going on with your intent.
Which obviously an AI is part of this conversation, and I think that's kind of how I wanted to build, the narrative here. But oftentimes in this space in particular, when people talk about AI, they're very much referring to self-service exclusively. They're talking about chatbots. They're talking about that whole idea that AI is going to help us solve transactional matters so agents can handle the complex ones. And I think all that's valid. It all makes perfect sense. But I'm wondering, what is it, what other ramifications, what other uses, what other applications AI may have within an organization, because I don't think it's just on the front end self-service. I think it can have a much bigger impact, and I'm wondering if you started to think about some of the other uses.
Yeah, definitely. It can provide a lot more benefit than just the obvious self-service applications. Like, we use artificial intelligence as a way to help streamline field operations. It has helped us make more appointments on time. It has assisted in sending the right type of crew to the order that's been generated, and it's really helped out a lot in the first response resolution in the field. So all those are key contributors to being efficient in the field, and again providing that great experience. And as you stated, customer satisfaction is not just the experience with the agent or in the IVR. It's that entire experience that goes through the providing the service that you're providing.
Where should the journey to AI begin? Because you mentioned a few different applications, and there's obviously many more that we can talk about. But as an organization, they know they have to start putting their best foot forward. And in fact, we have survey research kind of showing that the majority of organizations are planning to invest in artificial intelligence in the near future. And so, for those who are starting to make their first investments, where should they be looking? I think what's maybe the best quick win, or just the best way to kind of get their feet wet?
Yeah. Well, based on our experience, the journey starts with an honest assessment of the areas of opportunity. What are the highest volume of activities? What are the lowest first contact resolution activities? What are the longest calls? Once that's been assessed, then you can begin to tailor problem statements. You can't tackle everything at once. There has to be a strategy. And like I mentioned, highest volumes or lowest first contact, longest calls. Where's your biggest opportunities? We had to really focus in on just our 8 most voluminous processes that created most of the interactions, and that's what we focused on. Then once you've analyzed that and determined that, you can start to solve the problems and determine what data is going to be needed in your predictive analytics. Then you can determine how to streamline the interactions and how to empower the customers. And again, just always stress, don't want to bite off too much at one time.
What about when you think about measurement? Because one of the biggest things is, the biggest challenges a lot of organizations face when it comes to kind of taking that first step is, at what point does it become acceptable to start to look for results? I think over across CCW Fall, some of the conversations I've had with some of the speakers and just general conversations I have in the space, I mean, there's that ongoing challenge of, when is it okay? When can you kind of abandon a strategy and initiative because you just know it's not working? When do you have to say, okay, the results aren't there right now, but the promise is there, we have to stick with it? How do you kind of manage those expectations regarding the measurement of results over time?
Yeah, well, true. Anytime you make any investment or make any effort, you want to have a measure of what the success is. What I look at it is a few things. One, your customer satisfaction, which I know we measure. I know most companies do measure satisfaction, customer effort. You would expect to see improvements in that. And another area, and we've talked a lot about, are the operational aspects, operational metrics, which, my short list on that is going to be, what's your containment? We've really increased our containment since we've instituted or went on this journey with artificial intelligence, so to speak, the predictive analytics and the high-speed analysis, increased our containment, self-service containment, from 30% to over 60%. And we've been able to reduce our AHT, and those 2 items right there are big motivators just from the business aspect. So I think that's how I'd sum up the measurements of success.
And obviously, these key themes are going to be a part of your conversation in Austin next month. And so I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about anything we should expect there, some insights you plan to share, some talking points you plan to hit, anything that, could give us some insight into what to expect.
No, I mean, you touched a lot on the aspects of what I view and our company's viewed artificial intelligence and starting off on the journey. I think, without providing too much of a spoiler alert, just going to try and illustrate how we've been able to use this in the utility industry, which is what we're in, and just kind of what our journey looked like. Provide a lot more details and some good examples.
Great. Well, I want to thank you very much for sharing insights about a very popular topic. And again, I think, from my perspective, and as I wrap up, feel free to jump in if I'm getting this wrong, but I think it's really important to start to think about really consider what you're trying to achieve and also what you can achieve when you're looking into new technology, when you're looking into solutions such as predictive analytics. What is the real goal? What, if you were to implement technology, what would it do for the customer? Would it make things faster? Would it lead to more personalized conversations? Would it do both? And then what about on the operational side? Will it, allow agents to spend more time talking to customers? Will they be able to have more productive conversations? Will they be able to more, better mine data after the fact? Whatever it may be, understand what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, and then look at the different ways that different solutions can go ahead and actually solve those. When you start to pair goals and ideas and aspirations with realities of current technology, realities of certain solutions, realities of certain trends, that's when you're going to start to see the real world success. And I think that's also when when you're on the right track. And I think, one of the things I asked you earlier was the idea of results and how you think about those over the long term. And I think if you have a mind of what you're trying to achieve, then even if you don't have, you can't brag about your AHT going down by 30% or your CSAT score going up by 20% in the first month, if you know that's bringing you closer to this idea of a more streamlined operation or a more happy customer base, then you're going to, I think, be able to know whether you should stick with the initiative or not. And so really it's about, I think, when you talk about a journey to AI or really a journey to any sort of technology or any sort of trend, it's always about making sure is where you're going consistent where your brand should be going, where your customer experience should be going, and are you using the tools the best way you can along the way?
I think you summed it up very good, Brian.
I appreciate that, and of course I appreciate your time. I also appreciate those who are joining us with CCW Fall. The event continues to roll on. We have a lot of great sessions coming up, a lot of combinations of practical insights as well as exploring some buzzwords. We have everything from leadership sessions to looking at omni-channel to really, I think, looking at ways to make the contact center more intelligent and more operationally efficient. And so you're going to want to stay tuned for everything. Of course, you're also going to want to check out those virtual booths if you haven't, because I know that we have some of our vendors there that are demonstrating products and sharing their free content are absolutely in the AI space, and so you'll want to check out what they have to say as well. David, I want to thank you very much, and that does conclude this part of CCW Fall, this session, so thank you so much.